This is Gilbert Gottfried, and this is Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast with my co-host Frank Santopadre. And today we're at Nutmeg Post as guest of our friend Frank V. Now, Christopher Guest said of our guest today that when it comes to comedy, he has an extra gene. He's written for shows like Will and Grace, Cheers, and Seinfeld, written 3 novels, and worked with people like Steve Allen, Jonathan Winters, Bob Hope, Martin Short, Harry Shearer, Mary Tyler Moore, and Martin Mull. Please welcome our pal and the man with the world's funniest Donald O'Connor story, Tom Leopold.
He left out Gert Frobe.
That's always a problem.
Gert Frobe.
Consciously left out.
Now, I've been told that Harry...
First of all, may I say, next to my children being born, this is one of the greatest nights ever, and I appreciate you guys having me.
Sure, Tom.
Your children were born?
I'm sure they were born. What are you suggesting?
I thought they were...
They were shoulder rolled out of a car?
Yes. So they were actually born.
Of course, the old-fashioned way.
Oh.
Yeah.
How was that?
I don't know. I was busy that day.
So our next guest, children
That's
were
it?
born.
Oh. You got another guest?
No.
Oh, that's me. Okay. All right.
Our first guest, children were born.
Have you said my name? I know you said all those credits.
Yeah, Tom
I
Leopold.
didn't actually hear my
This was
name.
at the end of the intro.
Oh, okay.
We leave it out because no one knows who the fuck you are.
Would you say that I'm the least known guest you've had?
You're certainly up there.
Not even close, Tom.
I barely have heard of myself. You know, I'm the comedy writer's comedy writer, which means often imitated, seldom paid. But go ahead.
Yes. So what do you do for a living?
Well, I'm a comedy writer, Gilbert, and I've worked with you, and I've had the privilege of working with so many of my heroes, none of whom come to mind, fortunately.
Gert Frobe.
Now,
Gert Frobe, you're handsome. So John Laguizamo, you're a talented man. Can you use? I like people's names like that where you can
As
just
exclamations?
John Luis Gazamo, that hurts. Are we off subject?
yes.
Can I
No.
open with a question?
No.
Can I? Can a
Okay,
guest open?
sure,
Or is
sure.
that not done?
Go for it.
Is it poo-pooed?
What?
Okay.
No, that we'll get to later.
I think you got to it now.
Yeah,
actually,
yes, thank you.
Drifting over. Anyway, quick question for you guys, Frankie, and Gil. If you could only take one of these two people to a desert island, which one would you take? George Chakiris, George Maharis?
That's a tough one.
Wow, that is a
You know what?
tough
Think
one.
about it. We'll come back.
Hey, this is a test I'm sure you know. Who was George Maharis? Whose dick was George Maharis sucking in that gas station bathroom?
Wasted.
Oh, I'm getting on in age, and when I forgets a bit. I forgets a bit because I drinks a bit. But anyway, if all else goes, I still know I'm going to be okay if I can still remember the name Perfecto Tellez.
Nicely done.
Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Perfecto Tellez was who George Maharis was blowing.
Was standing in the shopping bag, or in the tea room, or what we like to call a men's room. It's called a tea room.
Yeah, because they stand in when they're in a stall. One of them stands in a bag, so they won't know another person's in there.
I'm going to sit back down now.
Yes.
I couldn't hear. I want to bring. I couldn't hear myself.
yes.
Yes, that's right. So for the folks at home, and don't try this at home, by the way, because you don't need to try it at
Well,
home.
because
you're home.
You don't have a men's room stall.
You don't have a gas room, a gas station men's room in your house. Well, you're rich enough. You could have one.
I had one put in.
Yeah, a dirty,
Called the
filthy
Perfecto
Sunoco
Tellez
gas
room.
station men's room.
Yes.
Now, Perfecto Tellez was a celebrity hairdresser?
Yes.
Or was he just a hairdresser? Because I think I had the information.
No, well,
I gave Bob Saget bad info.
He was a celebrity sodomizer.
But not like
not hairdresser.
not like Monty Rock. He wasn't a celebrity. He wasn't a hairdresser to the stars.
No.
Oh,
Well,
I gave Bob bad information.
any chance of that was blown when he blew.
So to speak.
Good night. Yeah. So cute George Takira story. You're probably sick of those. What with the podcast?
I get so every guest has a George Securis. Could you tell us a Ross Tamblyn one instead?
I wish. You know, Tam. It was like when people said, I never forget. I was 4 years. This is how hip I was.
Yes.
In no other way but this. When I was a kid, I would watch the 4 o'clock movie. You going somewhere, Frank?
No, just what?
Can you watch?
Our time start.
You got like a lunch or something?
Go ahead.
Makes me feel good, confident.
Can you hurry this up? Yeah, please.
You catching a bus?
Yes.
Okay.
4:30 movie.
All right. 4:30 movie, Miami, where I grew up. Bob Clayton hosted it. Who played the head bellman behind the desk in Jerry Lewis's The Bellboy? In Miami, shot in Miami, my hometown. I actually drove by there with my parents. My parents drove me by to see the cameras.
Do you know what I remember about the Bellboy? It seems like he probably just got a lot of comics who were around working Florida at the time.
Notenborough.
So, but they had this one unknown guy, or maybe you know his name, and his whole big bit was pretending to be eating an apple. Jerry Lewis runs into him and
Saul Bellow. No, I don't know.
And he just puts his hand like he's miming holding an apple, and he goes, "That's just a good apple."
I don't.
That was his
that.
shtick, pretending to eat an apple.
Yes.
Okay.
It was. That was one part. And as a kid, I was thinking.
I loved it as a kid.
Yeah. Well, as a kid, I was watching it, going, maybe when I'm older, I'll understand what's funny about this
And
part.
how'd that turn out for you?
No, it's still a mystery.
Well, you still got a couple of years.
You were starting to tell us a George Shakira story before you went to the Bellboy.
Well, this is to get us.
I heard George Shakira once went to the Bellboy.
I'm sure he saw the Bellboy. Now, this story is kind of the bridge to get us to the Shakira story.
Go ahead.
Okay?
We got the time.
This is how I knew I wanted to be in show business, because even at the age of 7, I'm watching the afternoon movie, and in those days, the guy hosting the movie, who was the head bellman in The Bellboy, which is Bob Clayton, who was a local TV personality, but Jerry hired him to be his boss in The Bellboy. And so I'm watching it, and he's talking about this terrible B movie that they're having on. And they would have birthday people come up. During the afternoon movie went on for 6 hours or something. And they'd bring somebody up to open a treasure chest, and they'd bring out a birthday cake. And he says, now this scene coming up now, Gwen so-and-so and William Lundigan. And Lundy would always... And so he's name dropping. I'm 7, and I know that when he says, and Lundy had a habit of, and I'm going, what does this guy know from Lundy? I'm 7 years old. This guy's a local TV Miami guy. Lundy had a way that, I'm going, well, how does he know Bill Lundigan? Now, I even forgot how the bridge.
That's a hip kid.
Yeah, pretty hip kid.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how that gets us to Chakiris.
There was another guy in The Bellboy
who ate a peach.
Who is describing like either astrological gods or whatever. And he goes, well, she's a ding-a-ling chick who swings with the, and he...
Yeah, I remember that.
And that's another thing.
That's another little Chotsky.
I had no idea what the hell.
How about how weird it was that he's the bellboy in the hotel, then Jerry Lewis comes in the hotel.
Oh, yes. Yes.
What's going on? I had asthma and I was on medication. And I thought, is this the medication? You know what I mean? I had so much cortisone and adrenaline pumped into my body. I have very bad asthma. And things like that. Like if ever on the 4 o'clock movie, a Busby Berkeley movie would come on with like 100 girls spreading their legs upside down, circling the moon with people dancing out of them. And it's like, I couldn't watch that stuff. It was too freaky.
Busby Berkeley, who was the great choreographer of old Hollywood, once killed someone driving a car.
That's right.
And I heard on the trial a guy testified for Busby Berkeley saying he was an
The guy had it coming?
eyewitness.
He said the guy had it coming?
No, I don't know. He was like an eyewitness or a doctor or some, and it turned out to be. Later on, they found out he was a guy that worked for the studio,
Interesting.
pretending to be an eyewitness.
And that's when you kind of, your heart broke?
And then Busby Berkeley was later caught
A lot
in
of
a
people,
men's
yes.
room, sucking perfectatellas.
Caught in a
Perfecto.
men's room running over another guy.
Perfecto got around. Why don't you tell the
He must
Maharis?
have been some good-looking guy.
You got me going from Maharis to Shakiris. Why don't you tell us about interacting with George Shakiris a couple of years ago?
Did you write a book called
From
going
here-
from
From here to Shakiris?
yes, going
I wrote a book called I, Shakiris. I, Shakiris. It's like one of those movies that's dubbed in Rome. Yeah?
yes.
I, Shakiris.
Didn't you reach out to George a couple of years ago? And
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's a long story. And it's not very good.
Short
Well,
and
no,
brief.
the other one was a long story.
Trying to get
And that
to
wasn't
good
just-
either.
He's just trying to get to one
So
story.
it's
No, I just
fine.
want that. This will make that story look great. That's how great this story. How bad this story is.
Does it have anything to do with the bellboy?
I don't know. Let's see.
Okay.
Let's give it its head. my pal, our pal, Paul Schaefer and I.
Yes.
You see this ring here? Not you
Yes.
folks at home, but we wanted to get friendship rings like Sam Momo Giancana and Frank Sinatra had.
Okay.
Right? Sam Momo Giancana, the head of the Chicago mob, gave Frank, his pal, a ring that Frank wore and it had a sapphire in the corner. And his ring, this is true, because we all are into this stuff so heavily. And Frank's ring said, "To Frank, love Momo," which was Sam. It was kind of his nickname, Momo. And Momo's ring said, "Love Momo from Frank." So we decided we wanted to get rings kind of like that. So we're thinking. So I happen to like to look up stuff about George Maharis. I don't hunt. I don't fish.
Right. That's just your thing. It's a much safer hobby.
Hey, well, I don't know about that. I'd rather be shot, actually. So I happen to be looking up George Maharis, and by, I don't believe in all that supernatural hoodoo. But George Shakiris came up by mistake, if you believe in coincidence.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
And
you Googled George Shakiris, but you Googled George Maharis, but you got George Shakiris.
I got George Shakiris.
Okay.
The stars were aligned.
Thank God you didn't get Perfecto Tellus.
I'm trying to get Perfecto Tellus. I'd love to know what happened to him. By the way, the bag is at the
The
Sunoco
Smithsonian.
Gasoline Museum.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfecto, get in the bag, but don't squash the grapes. I'm having that provolone later. And anyway, so George Shakiris, and this is Paul. Paul says, "Well, we'll get a jeweler to make us our rings, And I said, "All right." They kind of forgot. And then I get George Shakiris, and it said, George, and among his other things, Academy Award winner and unemployable actor. He's a very nice guy. His story is amazing. And jewelry. He makes jewelry. So I call Paul up right away. I go, "Wouldn't it be amazing to get our rings made by George Shakiris?" And Paul says, "George Maharis?" I said, No. Yeah, good mistake, though.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Logical mistake.
Sure.
George Shakiris. So I would love, but you see, I would love to have George Maharis make the ring because I love Route 66. And I've got about an hour story about Marty Milner that I'm going to save for later.
Very good. Hey,
Hang on
can
to that
I
one.
say,
Yeah.
can I just bring in my favorite actor?
Yes.
Lon Chaney Jr. did 2 episodes of Route
course.
66.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
Which
of course.
you've brought up on 2 different episodes
Yes.
now. But it's worth mentioning again.
You can't bring that up enough.
What was it? Owl's Wing?
Owl's Wing and
And Lizard's Tail.
Lizard's Tail.
and
And
Memory.
the other one, I forget the title, but he plays like this hillbilly father
Right.
of George Maharis.
That's right. When they, because Buzz, George's character, excuse me, was an orphan, and all of a sudden they're driving through Alabama, and all these hillbillies come out, and they all look like George Maharis. And perfecto teles.
Weird. That's
Strangely
strange.
enough.
That's strange.
Kind of a forecast of
And
and
sorry, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, also in that episode is the actress Betty Field,
Oh yeah.
who worked with Cheney in Of Mice and
Oh,
Men.
that's right.
Was that just a wonderful, a beautiful accident, or?
I
is he-
don't. They
I'll
had
do
no
it, but you
scenes
gotta,
together.
you also have to hire Betty Field. I'll do it. But she
That
won't
your,
read.
That's your Cheney Jr.?
I don't know.
Yeah,
What
he sounded like an old Jew. You gotta.
I'll do it.
You sound like Jack Guilford.
I'll do it. But I get to take the centerpiece home, and Betty Field has the.
So you're getting the
Yeah.
friend. You want to get the friendship rings.
So basically,
Thank you, Frank.
Lon Chaney sounded like Charlie Callis. He said,
Sounded-
I want to talk to. I want to talk.
The tongue. I want to. So we want to get. So I call Paul up. I'm very excited. George Chakiris makes jewelry, and he didn't seem as excited as I hope. Anyway, but so he says, I said, he'll make them. Imagine not only can we say we have rings like Frank and Momo, but it's made by George Chakiris. Can anything be more, unimportant? Except for like 8 guys that will laugh at this. So he says, all right, we'll call him. I said, I'm not going to call him. You're the celebrity. You have to actually call George Chakiris. So he has his guy at the Letterman show call George Chakiris' guy. You don't think Chakiris will hear this, do you?
No.
You don't think Chakiris...
Anyone will hear
I
it.
don't think anyone in America will hear this.
So Paul calls me up. He says, look, come over to my house after the show. Chakiris is calling us. So I'm so excited.
Wow.
He's going to call. And I'm nervous. But Paul, Paul's used to this kind of celebrity
Yeah, it's
jet set stuff,
Yeah.
So by this point, we want him to make jewelry. And now we have to make, now we're already getting sucked into this thing. He says, I don't really make rings. He has talks like this. I don't really make rings.
He has.
You know how he talks.
He sounds.
He sounds like Lon Chaney Jr., a waspy Lon Chaney Jr. So he says, I just make these medallions. So now what are we going to do? Not buy the medallion? So we say, really? You're not going to make? No, I can't make rings. I said, well, okay, we'll take the medallions. They look like Ming from Flash Gordon.
Ming the Merciless.
Yeah, a huge 2-ounce triangle with arrows.
More like an amulet than a medallion.
Yes, more like an ambulance.
Yeah.
And one was eros, very kind of homoerotic, let's say, but very heavy, so that when you leaned over and the thing swung back into your chest, it could just take you right out. So we get these things, and then I have to tell my wife. I said, well, he doesn't make rings, but we bought some, what do you call it?
Medallion.
Medallion. She said, okay. And I said, it's going to be $500. I go, what? I said, what? It's going to be $500. What? $500. I have to pay George Chakiris $500.
Oh, geez.
For their medallion that we never have worn since. But anyway, but then I say to him, George, will you send also a letter? Because now I'm thinking I'll get the letter and I'll hang the medallion in a frame and
Right, sure.
and my kids can sell it for kindling. They can sell it for kindling money.
It's a conversation piece.
Yeah.
It's an Oscar winner.
Yes. So anyway, we don't have these. We got the rings made, and we had them made. Half California, see there. That's supposed to be California. These are horrible rings.
Yeah.
Terrible. And we had a little sapphire, and mine says to Paul from Tom and his. But the thing is, the great part of it is now George Chakiris is kind of our pal now, and we get a call from George Chakiris. Tom, first of all, thank you so much for remembering, and you're so kind to buy the medallions. And Paul was always pissed because my medallion had 28 grams of silver, 28.1 grams, and he just had 28 grams. And George Chakiris was a wonderful guy. He got the Academy Award, but he was no George Maharis, let's face it. And so in the middle of the thing, Paul is just like, he can be kind of a dip.
There's no George Grizzard for that matter.
No. By the way, George Maharis does paintings. George Chakiris does
Jewelry.
George Grizzard does insurance.
Really?
No, I don't know what. So Paul says to George Chakiris,
Wait a
"Excuse me."
minute.
Huh?
Was George Grizzard in that Twilight
was
Zone
in-
episode
With
where
Ron
he
Chaney III.
creates. No, he creates a robot version of himself.
Yes.
He was in a couple of them. He was in a couple.
Oh, he was also in one that had to do with the love potion.
Yes, where he was suddenly girls couldn't keep their hands off him.
Yes.
George Grizzard. Look,
was gay.
Look it
Yes.
up, folks.
Yeah,
And I think he once blew Perfecto Teles.
he was in a separate gas station
Well, Perfecto
with
Teles.
Primo Carnera.
Yes.
Really? Primo Carnera.
Kind of cool.
No kidding.
So I'm looking at Primo Carnera on the web, and I see
Hey,
George Grizzard.
hey,
Sorry,
um,
Tom Leopold.
yeah.
I know nobody knows who I am.
I'm
But you don't even
sorry.
know who I am.
No. Now, George Chakiris,
Thank you.
Academy Award.
Yes.
He was like this incredibly handsome guy, great dancer.
Yes, great dancer.
I mean,
He was wonderful.
extremely talented,
Yes.
extremely handsome. What happened after West Side Story?
Well, good. He went to Europe and did a lot of movies over there, and he was a very good singer, and he was on with who's that Greek Melina McCurry?
Melina Mercouri.
No,
Yeah.
not her.
Okay.
Who's the one who wears the
Kelly
glasses?
Savalas.
Maria Callas.
Nina
who you.
Mascura.
Yes, that's her. Yes, I know who you mean.
Nina Mascura,
Much younger.
which I wear just to bring out my eyes.
Sure.
And I'm straight.
It's attractive.
Now, you said that Chevy Chase
Yes.
once got lost somewhere. You were telling us the story.
His car broke down in the Hollywood Hills. Chevy told me this story.
Chevy Chase.
And he said, he's had so much money at that point. This is early in the big stardom. He just left the car. He starts walking down the street, and the car pulls up. It's Paul Lynde. Says, Chevy Chase, get in his car. However, I used to do a pretty good. I had memorized the Paul Lynde comedy album when I was a kid.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. But you're
I
not
had an
gay.
old dog named Blue. I could hit him and he wouldn't care. Always kept him chained in the chair. That was his act. Anyway, so Paul Lynde gives Chevy a ride up to his house. Now, nothing untoward happened, but can you imagine if he, God forbid, because he was a drinker, he liked his drink, he's liked his martinis, Mr. Lynde, right? What if they had gone off the cliff and the rumors they must have been gay lovers or something, Chevy and Paul. If something had, God forbid, happened then?
And Paul Lynde
Yes.
was, I've heard it a few times, that Paul Lynde was the most viciously anti-Semitic person you'd ever meet.
I thought you were going to say huge pussy hound.
Well,
Yeah, that goes
This
without
whole
saying.
gay thing, it's just a front.
I
Yeah.
heard backstage at Hollywood Squares when the other people would be
Loving Jews.
Yeah, they'd be loving Jews and telling stories and laughing and having a nice time. Paul Lynde would be bombed out of his skull, and he'd go, "Oh, those fucking Jews. They're the reason I don't have a career."
Yeah. Why would they be the reason he doesn't have a career?
Yes.
Very strange. Now, Gilbert has
Did he
no
ever go into more detail?
Gilbert has no interest in this whatsoever, Tom. But tell us, you started before you were a comedy writer. You started out as an actor.
I have no interest in this
I have no
whatsoever.
interest.
You did Mannix. We talked about
Gunsmoke?
Gunsmoke. You sent a Gunsmoke episode.
Oh,
the
and
other
Martial
day.
Counselor at Law. I did that with Wayne Newton.
Oh.
Wow.
All of a sudden, we're on the set. I'm on trial. I'm testifying against Wayne Newton, who's supposed to be my college professor. Imagine having a college professor who has his hair like that and the turquoise
A hair
belt,
helmet.
turquoise belt, and the Spanx under his pants.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's like one whole piece.
It's like a body spank.
The pants and the shirt attached.
Yeah.
Like a jumpsuit.
Yeah, and the doors open on the soundstage, and I don't know what's going on. And this white Rolls Royce pulls into the set, and he gets out. He doesn't even park in the street. He parks in the set.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And you tell us about. We talked about this last time. Tell us about
Last time, the one that no one heard?
Yes,
Yeah. The pilot?
Tell us the pilot. Tell us about doing a TV movie with Robert Culp called Outrage.
Well, I played.
You were a young actor.
I was about 22.
You were like a thug.
I was always a thug. In
Yeah.
Mannix, I played the leader of a street gang named the Nomads. Me.
Jewish kid from Miami.
I weighed 128 pounds. I'm from Miami.
I mean, I could kick your ass. That's how
Gilbert
pathetic.
Gottfried could kick my ass.
Yeah.
That's what a pussy I am.
They couldn't get Christopher Tabori, so
I was always.
so they called you.
They wouldn't make his number.
I see.
Yeah. He was always getting the parts that we all wanted to get Christopher. What happened to him?
He was in a lot of that Quinn Martin stuff.
And I would have thought you'd have Christopher on before me.
We'll get him.
He's even more famous than I am. Anyway, but Robert Culp, I was there with Nicholas Hammond. He was in my gang.
From The Sound of Music.
Sound of Music, and I would just the plot was I was just a spoiled rich kid who ran over his dog for no reason at all, just for kicks.
He's a veterinarian, right?
Like Johnny Cash. I shot a man just to see him die. I ran over a dog. Not quite as macho, but anyway. And it was just, it was a great job. But I don't remember, what was my story?
That he was a kind of an angry guy.
Oh, yeah, he was a little bit angry. I think he liked his martinis, too, because he was a little bit, come the end of the day, he was...
Robert Culp.
Yeah, and we used to we were so perverted. We just would shake his trailer and say, nothing, Mr. Culp. No, it's not a great story.
And you also...
It's no George Takira story.
Now, did he have an attitude problem or just a drinker?
I just think, everybody went on. Steve McQueen went on to the movies. After Bob and Ted, Carol Alice, and that, and maybe he was a little...
That was a big hit.
That I have as big a part as him. And I was working with this nobody.
You were working with a chimp.
I'd be drunk, too. He might as well work with a chimp. He might as well get his brain transplanted to a chimp.
And you were in a movie that had nothing to do with Chucky the possessed doll.
No.
But you were in a movie called Child's Play.
What was it?
Child's Play.
Yes, that's better. It's more like it. I was, and now that it might be interesting to your listener.
Yeah.
I don't think so. So far, nothing else
Take a shot.
Hey, what am I going to do? Be less in demand? That couldn't possibly happen. I go to read for Sidney Lumet. I was 21 years old, and I get the part in the movie in New York. And a really two nice scenes in the movie called Child's Play. Not the one with the child,
No.
Chucky the cheese or whatever it is. Chucky the robot. What was it?
This took doll.
A murderous doll.
Yeah, this takes place in like a Catholic school.
It took place in a boys' Catholic school. Right.
Yeah.
And we shot it in Terrytown. And so I get the job, and I say to Mr. Lumet, I say, I'm 21 years old, and I'm just out of high school, like 3 years, And I say, and I had one scene with one lead actor, a really nice scene, and another nice scene with the other lead actor. And I say, well, who's playing these parts? Who's the stars? He goes, oh, well, James Mason's playing that one. So I have a scene with James Mason. And I said, what the other one? He goes, oh, Marlon's doing that one. So I'm supposed to work on Monday. I'm working with Marlon Brando on Monday.
And James Mason.
James Mason, who cares? But still,
He's not a bum.
It's not a bum, but I didn't do, seen some James Mason movies as a kid. Like he did the waterfront scene with the cab, So all weekend, I'm working with Marlon Brando on Monday morning, first scene. It's like, it could be a nice little one-act play, I mean, I was kind of thinking, who am I going to drop from my friends? Who will be the first one I step on? You know what I mean? Where are the little people? Which little people
who are no longer worthy of hanging around with you because you're working with Brando?
I'm already too good for everybody I know. So I get to the set. They take us up to Terrytown in a convent, and there's all these nuns going around, and now they have like men's room taped over the ladies because there's no men's rooms in a ladies' convent. Well, you know that. And I get there and I go, and I'm like, I can hardly eat all weekend. I'm ill. I'm just so nervous and crazed. And I said, where's Mr. Brando? Oh, Marlon quit the picture on Saturday. I go, oh, geez, who'd they get? Robert Preston. They got Robert Preston.
The music man.
And I'm more excited now than I was for Marlon Brando because I knew everything from the Music Man. And he was wonderful. So I do the scene with him, first scene. And at the end of the scene, I do my little scene. Turns out okay. He turns to the crew and he goes, hey, everybody. You know that great voice he has? Tommy lost his cherry. Hey, everybody. Tommy lost his cherry. And I'm sitting there. I'm like high as it was so sweet, Robert Preston. And I'm sitting there, kind of waiting to do the next scene, the next day. And David Merrick, the big Broadway impresario, comes up, and I'm actually reading The Great Gatsby. I don't know. It's like the last book I read.
Yeah.
1972. And I hear somebody say, "What do you think of that book?" I go, "That's all right." And I look up, it's David Merrick. Sits down next to me. And a little later, he made it into the picture with Robert Redford. He was the producer of it.
Sure.
And I said,
Mia Farrow.
but that was all in the future. And he said, "What do you think of it?" I don't know. Yeah, it's not that great. I almost could have stopped that forgettable movie from ever being made.
Yeah, it's not a very good one.
And then Shakira's come. No. Okay. That was it.
Now, James Mason once blew you in a men's room of a gas station.
Yes. I'm just able to talk about it now.
Yes.
He put something in my drink. His balls. I think he put his balls in my drink. Now that I think of it.
I'm going to dip my balls in your drink.
In your drink. Oh, he's Jack Kennedy all of a sudden.
It's like a little Cagney
sounded
there.
like-
I'm
Yeah.
going to put my ball in your drink. You know, I was thinking.
You once blew James Cagney, I
I
heard.
once blew James Cagney and Edgar Buchanan.
Really?
I was the
Uncle
bologna,
Joe.
I was the bologna and a Cagney Buchanan sandwich.
Pat O'Brien
Pat
fucked you in
O'Brien,
the ass once.
He tore my inner lining on a bus.
Really?
Yeah. I should be ashamed of my feelings?
Now,
I don't think so.
You ate out.
I licked Stubby K's taint. What's there something wrong with that? Huh? I'll never forget. Stubby's taint was.
Oh, wow.
Not at all
that's
like
gonna
you
be my-
picture it. It wasn't at all the taint you picture when you picture Stubby K's taint. You know what I mean? It was. It was.
I have such
this-
preconceived notions
Well, of
about
course. And this is before people like Stubby K bleached their taint.
Did you ever
Yes.
eat out
Yes.
Frank McHugh's asshole?
Frank McHugh story. Frank McHugh loved to cram ice cream in his sphincter. Maple walnut. If you really want to,
It's a little
it's
specific.
good for details.
I
It's
don't
radio. You want to be detailed in radio.
Frank McHugh.
It paints a nicer picture
Yeah.
that way.
Well,
Yeah.
you got to paint a picture in radio.
Yeah.
If it's for TV, we could show a picture of his wrinkly, hairy sack.
So you do
Sorry about- yes,
you
I'm sorry.
do the movie Child's Play, and you all.
I love how Frank can get it right out of sucking ice cream out of Frank McHugh's ass. Back on track.
Somebody has to keep
Yeah.
it going.
Yeah,
and
boy, that's a hard
you
job.
tell us about some of the auditions you did. You auditioned for the part of Fonzie.
I almost was Fonzie.
Yeah, and tell us about that.
And when you think of that, if that had happened, I wouldn't have to be here right now. No offense.
Can
I'm
you
loving
do,
this.
can
No
you
offense.
do
that's
your
not true.
Fonzie audition for us, please?
We interviewed Henry, so that's not
Did
necessarily
Henry tell
true.
you I was auditioning?
He
with?
did,
And
Did you
we
remember me?
interviewed
Yes.
Mickey Dolenz.
and Mickey Dolenz too.
I once, felched Mickey Dolenz.
The what?
I don't know.
Tell us about the Fonzie audition. Was it memorable? Did you see Dolenz or Winkler?
Dolenz was there too.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
he wasn't there when I was.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was up for it.
Yes,
Well, it was after the
he was
Monkees.
supposedly Gary Marshall's choice for the part because the Fonzie was supposed to be a big
He was
strapping guy.
also up for Sophie's Choice.
I didn't know that. Personal
That would have been a whole other way to go.
for Stingo.
No, for Sophie. Mm-hmm. By the way, I have a third choice Sophie could have made, but let's go. There's no time for that. Well, I knew Henry from New York. We had both been fired from separate plays in this one theater that had two theaters in it. I was in one play, Henry was in the other, and we both got fired on the same day from the same theater, from different plays.
What are the odds?
Yeah. So we were both up for this thing, and again, with my foreknowledge and my expertise, I thought, this is shit too.
Yeah.
Great Gatsby. I had the nerve at 21 to say The Great Gatsby wasn't that good.
And Gilbert's interested in this. You played Ted Knight's son
I did.
in the Ted Knight
Did you ever
show.
see that? I did 6 episodes
Yes.
of Ted.
Now, is this the one where he's like a cartoonist?
No.
Oh, that was the hit
good,
one.
sir.
That was
that
too
was
close
the
for
hit one.
comfort.
This was one that was so horrible. I played his son, Winston. Now, this is at the very beginning. AIDS had not yet reared its cancerous head. And he plays, first
Hey,
of all,
before you go any further, Ted Knight
Yes.
had a very small part in The Twilight Zone.
And he was in Psycho.
And Psycho.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
That's right.
Oh,
that too.
wow.
I forgot about that. I would have asked him about that.
Yes. Call him now.
But you were the son-in-law.
It's going to be a long-distance call, my friend.
Yes.
Ted? Oh, he was a very nice guy. And so I get this show, and talk about already not in any kind of reality at all. Ted Knight runs a escort service for straight men, and he had all these women on. One of them, no, it wasn't Maritz, but there's all these women, and he runs an escort service, like an up and up. Oh no, sexuality, so it's like crazy. And I'm the teenage boy who just wants to make all these girls, right? And they did six episodes of it, and that was. And then if you've seen them, you know why I went into writing almost immediately after.
God, that sounds horrible.
Oh God, it's horrible.
Which brings me to the question: how did you make the transition into writing from acting?
I had started writing while I was writing while I was acting. I started writing at the Lampoon, National Lampoon at 21. Me and Chris Guest started writing articles, and then the radio hour, National Lampoon Radio. So I'd be off doing some play in Boston or the Arena Theater or the Long Wharf Theater, and I'd be sending in this stuff. And I was so much more talented backstage, being funny. What am I? And I thought to myself in those days, what am I going to be? Uncle Bill on the Waltons when I'm 50? What am I going to do? Where am I going with this? I was all right. Sometimes I was good. Sometimes I was too nervous to be good. And you're all right, But I mean, this is what I'm going to. And I was so funny backstage, and I thought, and it just sort of evolved, really. And then, Chris Guest and I did a pilot called Flakes. We played two old Jewish women on a tandem walker, and all this stuff. And then really the thing that really, I was doing a whole bunch of stuff, but the thing that really was a big break was Chevy hiring me to write his special the year he left Saturday Night Live, and that was a big deal.
The Chevy Chase special. Is that what it was called?
Very good. You've done your homework.
A lot of research. Yeah.
You've done your homework, my friend.
What was that like?
Well, it was great, but how I got the job, I knew Chevy from the National Lampoon Radio Hour. When we were up there with Bill Murray and Belushi and Brian Murray and so I knew Chevy from Lemmings.
Belzer was around then too, wasn't he?
Yeah, I really didn't get to know Belzer till later.
Oh, okay.
But and Chris Guest introduced me to him. Actually, we've been good friends ever since. But so Chevy was gigantic then. From Saturday Night Live, he leaves. He's the biggest star in the country, and he called me up. Well, one day we were at a party at. This sounds name dropping, but I don't know anybody outside the show.
You've already dropped Brando's name.
I already dropped Shakira's.
Right, perfecto.
Yeah. And so I'm at a loft party after Saturday Night Live in Dan Aykroyd's loft, and Chevy Chase comes up to me, and he knew Chris Guest very well. They roomed together out in L.A. And he sits down next to me, Chevy, and he goes, I hear you're the funniest guy. And I just went, yeah. And he thought that was so funny that I just said, yeah, without trying to be funny at all. And then a few weeks later, he leaves Saturday Night Live, and I get a call from him, and he says, look, it's Chevy, I want you to write my first special for NBC, but I only want you to do it if you can tell me that you actually said what I'm about to tell you that I heard you said. I said, well, what? Because Chris Guest's sister's a really good friend of mine. We've been friends since we were teenagers, and I was doing this play in Boston, Moonchildren, and she said, Tommy, can I come see your play? Oh, yeah. Can I stay with you? I said, sure. I'll stay 3 or 4 days. I said, stay 3. And he thought that was so. He said, did you say that? I go, yeah. He says, okay, I want you to write my special. And that's how I wrote it.
And that was your first television gig?
No, I'd done stuff before, but that was a big break. Yeah.
Now, Chevy is I've worked with him, and I've run into him a few times, and he's one of those people I can use that classic line of, well, he was always nice to me.
Right.
Now, because he's got...
he has that rep, but he's always been great to me.
Yeah. Now, you worked on his roast.
I worked on his roast. I worked on a few specials after that, after the pilot. And I was in the first Lampoon Vacation movie. They redid I had this really funny part where remember Eddie Bracken was Wally in Wally's World? Well, the original ending was Chevy and his family they just drive up to his mansion and want something from Wally. And so I was Wally's assistant, and Chevy holds a gun on me and makes me tap dance. And I did like a whole tap dance. And then the movie comes out, and they go to Wally World instead. They cut the whole end of the movie.
It's too bad.
They put John Candy in it. It was a better ending.
Right.
What was the question?
Did you work with Bracken?
I took Eddie Bracken to dinner at Musso's.
That's great.
After the shoot that day, he was great. He was great.
There's a guy that probably had stories working with Sturgis.
Interesting sack.
It's a lot of detail.
Tell me when you picture Eddie Bracken's sack, what do you picture? Quick, don't think. All right, sorry. Go ahead, Frank.
And Steve Allen.
I love Steve Allen.
Tell us about working with Steve.
He was my idol when I was growing up. I thought, God, how do you get that fast? When we were kids watching Steve Allen. I love Steve Allen and Tom Poston and Don Knotts and Louis Nye. Louis Nye was one of my favorite comedians in the world. So right after the Chevy Show, I started to get all these shows like the McCoo and Davis Summer Hour. Things like that.
Gilbert and I were talking about that.
Yeah,
Marilyn
McCoo and Billy Davis.
From the Fifth Dimension.
First day on that show, I went up to Billy Davis Jr. and I said, "Come on, what's the truth? Why did you leave Will Maston?" And he went, "Oh, yeah." But he didn't really like that I said that. Anyway, with Steve Allen, I just got hired to write on his show. He had, back in this, it sounds like 1951, the Steve Allen Summer Show. But it was a summer show, summer replacement for 6 episodes on NBC. And I got hired just as a writer. And the first day of work, we're at a location at a movie theater on some sketch. I don't remember even what it was. And I'm standing next to Steve Allen, who I adored, everybody of my generation. He's like the Letterman of our generation. And he's very tall. He's like 6'4", and he had a little round Band-Aid on his neck, like when you have a pimple or cut yourself shaving. So I'm standing right next to him, and I swear I don't know where I got the balls to do this, but I just reached up high and put my finger on the Band-Aid in his neck, and I just held it there, and I went, "Gwen, bring my car. Have them bring my car around. Tell Tony I want a shave. I want my shoes. I want the manicure, the whole deal." And I just left it on there for a really long time. He just fucking laughed his head off. And then he puts me on the show because I wrote this piece for myself in it. And Catherine O'Hara was a writer too, and he puts us both on. And we ended up singing and dancing with Kay Ballard and Donald O'Connor.
It's surreal.
Wow.
Yeah. And do we have time for a Donald O'Connor story?
Sure.
We got about an hour and 20 minutes.
And then we'll get back to more jewelry made from chicken. But so Donald O'Connor, even better than Fred Astaire or Gene Kelly. I love Donald O'Connor. And that's what I really wanted to be, was like one of those guys,
You wanted to be a hoofer?
Yeah. I just wanted to be like Donald O'Connor. I don't know. And Steve had us doing dancing and like a review with stools, like a Plaza 9 review. And it was corny. And Catherine O'Hara was in it. We were the 2 young people in tuxes and gowns. And Kay Ballard and Donald were, it's like one of those bad reviews, like from gay bars to Zay bars, one of those things you see in the early 60s at Plaza 9 review, and it was whatever. But so after rehearsal one day, Donald O'Connor says, "But Tommy," and he's like all through the day, he's chain smoking Marlboros and putting nitroglycerin under his tongue, nitroglycerin pills under his tongue, and smoking. And, and he says to me, "Tommy, you know what? I have a gorgeous velvet jacket, brown velvet, and I wore it in this picture with Marilyn Monroe. My name is still sewed into it from MGM, Donald O'Connor. I wore it in this dance scene with Marilyn Monroe.
Is it no business like show business?
Yeah. And I'm too fat for it now. I got it home. I'm going to bring it to you tomorrow." I go, "My God, Donald O'Connor's bringing me the coat he wore." It was like when I got the part on with Brando.
Yeah.
Whole night I can't even sleep, and I'm thinking, this will just be the beginning of Donald O'Connor and my friendship. The coat starts it off, and he probably has like cufflinks that he wore. I'm already like grave robbing him, And I'm so excited, I can't even stand it. And I get to the parking lot at the studio early, before anybody. I'm just waiting for him to pull up in his car, so that it looks like I'm just walking by. I can't wait to get the coat. So he pulls up, and I get out, and I make it look like I'm just kind of going in. I wasn't waiting for him. And he gets out of the car, doesn't have the coat. And he goes, "Hey, Tommy, hey, Donald, Mr. Hey, Donald, yeah." Walks, never mentions the coat again. And I never brought it up. And that's why I can't read. No, that's not.
So you never got the coat?
I never got the coat. And people say, "Well, why didn't you ask him?" I'm not going to ask him. I don't want to embarrass him.
Wow.
Now
What do you make of that? What do you make of that, Gilbert? You're into psychology.
I stopped listening to the story a while ago. Because
Let's get back.
It kind of dragged along and has no ending whatsoever. That's the thing about that story.
Watch his eyes light up, Frank. Watch it. King Donovan.
Okay.
King Donovan.
Huh?
Yeah.
Do I know how to get
Body
you
It was a
snatchers.
very
get
long
this man
story,
focused?
and then it's kind of like a joke that has no punchline.
Well, you're trying to ask me let's not talk about my career anymore. It's boring.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've met Jerry Lewis a few times.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. We went, Belzer became like his son. He even called
It's
him Dad.
so
Remember
strange.
that?
It's so weird.
It's so weird.
What is happening there with Belzer and Jerry Lewis? They're like a couple now.
Yeah, it's like the long lost son.
And the dog.
And the dog.
Yeah,
both
of course,
dogs.
the dog's always got to be
Yeah,
there.
Belzer's a therapy dog. It's not a therapy dog. You know, Belzer took his dog to see Spamalot.
Oh, yeah, he's with
Imagine-
that dog every second.
Imagine
Everywhere.
you buy tickets you wait a year to get tickets to Spamalot, and Belzer's sitting there with his dog.
The dog in its own seat.
I don't know. But
Interesting.
he's not. He just says he's a therapy dog. He's not really a therapy dog.
No, of
So
course.
anyway, Belzer arranges for Jerry Lewis, who had a daughter the age of my daughters at the time, like 13, and to have brunch on a Saturday morning at Fiorillo's in the back room. Again, I can't believe I'm meeting these people, because it's like if I had thought as a kid in Miami, it's like me going to, in the NASA program or something, that I would ever get these moments to be with these people that I absolutely worship. Once I had to be rushed to the hospital because of Jerry. I told Jerry this story, and we had this brunch at Fiorillo. I would get asthma whenever I would get extremely happy. I'd get blue and wet my pants and be rushed to the hospital. Every birthday party, my mom would bring out the cake, and the kids were there, and I'd be so happy. I'd just be so happy that I would couldn't breathe, blackout, pants would be wet, rush to the hospital. I come back, my brothers are fighting over my presents and stuff. But one day, with him and Dean, I'm watching. I'm like 6 or 7. They're still together, and they're at the ball game, and Jerry's eating peanuts, and Dean's he's with a beautiful chick, and Jerry's watching the game, stuffing peanuts, and he chokes, and he grabs Dean, he shakes Dean, and he says, Dean, I got a peanut in my neck. And I thought that was in his neck.
Yeah.
I have a peanut in my neck.
Yeah.
I got laughing so hysterically. My doctor had to come over and give me adrenaline.
Really?
I told Jerry that story. He goes, yeah, it's pretty funny. But anyway, he was lovely. He was great.
Well, Gilbert, you've met him too.
Oh, yeah, you met him 100 times.
See, I was hoping this story would
And
end.
then he says he had a coat.
Yes.
He had a double
I
coat.
walked in, and there
All
was
right.
Jerry Lewis.
What do you want me to do?
Wearing Donald O'Connor's
coat.
jacket.
Yeah, I wish I had thought of that.
You met him. You ran into him recently, didn't you, Gil?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I ran into him, and I had the pleasure of saying, he said, Gilbert, you crazy cocksucker.
Oh, that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
It's flattering.
Wish he had insulted me in that, man.
Tell us about seeing Jessel on the Queen Mary. Gilbert's. And you wanted to mention Whit Bissell. I think now would be the time.
Well, let me whip my Bissell for a minute.
Because Gilbert used to do Whit Bissell
Do
and a
me, I'll
Jessel
do that.
bit.
I love that.
Oh, it's too long a bit. It would be kind of like your Donald O'Connor story.
Yeah, I see. I see what you mean. Thanks. You're right.
Yeah.
What was the
Did
question?
I ever tell you about the time I was working with Donald O'Connor?
Yeah.
And he
had
said,
a pair of pants.
I've got a pair of shoes.
I got a pair of shorts.
Yes.
I wore in Bermuda Farewell
Yes.
with Helen Klein and Bill Lundy. Bill Lundigan.
And
Lundy would be...
I saw him the next day, and he didn't have the
I
shoes.
guess you're right. It doesn't really have an ending, does it?
Well, it's a sad ending, but it's still an ending.
Well, it's kind of I have another story. Can I tell a story about...
Is it as good as
You think
your
that-
Donald O'Connor?
Yes, it's every bit as good.
Why does every story have to end funny?
Yeah, Gilbert, what's the matter with you? Now I'm 12 years old. I'm taking acting.
You are?
Not
You
now,
look a
not
lot-
currently.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but thank you. It's nice if you don't say that. I have I have the body of a 12-year-old. It's in my crawl space, actually, But I'm taking acting lessons at 12. I know I want to be in showbiz. And in Miami, in Coral Gables, there was a theater called the Studio M. And every year, Tennessee Williams would write these plays in Key West and bring them up to the Studio M and kind of workshop them and stuff. Sweet Bird of Youth, all this stuff. And the woman who ran this theater was like a big shot in Miami in the early 60s, big Ruth Foreman. And I'm the only kid in the acting class. They're all adults. And she says, next week, bring in a piece that really is meaningful for you. Could be anything. Could be anything. Now, at the time, I was just in love with the Jolson story with Larry Parks.
Oh, my God.
Crazy about it.
Yes.
Had the record. I loved everything. I would just stay in my room and mime Larry Parks and imitate Larry Parks, imitating Al Jolson. So I decided I'm going to mime. There's a rainbow around my shoulder and the sky blue above. Let it rain and storm, I'll keep warm because I'm in love. I did the whole move. I'm 12. Chubby from the quarter zone. And I end up on one knee and I think this is going to kill. This is going to be great. I bring the record to Studio M. Other people got up and did scenes from Uncle Vanya and The Rainmaker and things. All right, Tom, you're next. I go up. I give the guy the record, Jolson record. He puts it, the record, puts it on.
Yeah.
There's a rainbow around my shoulder and the sky blue above. I do the whole thing. Let it rain and storm. I'll keep warm because I'm in love. And I get down on one knee. My arms are stretched out like Al Jolson, in a mammy pose. And the record's going like that. Guy takes it off. My arms are stretched. She's in the front row, Ruth Foreman. Long pause. Doesn't say anything. Finally, I got to stand up, She still doesn't say anything. And finally, she says, all the students are looking at her. What's she going to say? I'm 12 years old. And she goes, record pantomime is the lowest form of show business.
Wow.
Oh.
Which is not even true because ventriloquism is the lowest form of show business.
Thank you. Yeah. That's exactly what I told her.
Not even accurate.
I think geek. It's under geek. It's right under geek for sure.
Even better than the Al Jolson story was Jolson Sings Again.
But better than that is what you reminded me of, and I've looked it up on YouTube. The Eddie Cantor ending.
Oh, my God, yes!
Talk about surreal.
Yeah, because Keith Brazell is playing him throughout the whole movie.
I just want to applaud Keith Brazell.
And then at the very end,
yes,
is an old, depressed, sickly-looking Eddie Cantor.
He's just had a heart attack just when they said roll him. Comes in.
And I think...
And his wife, who looked like William Bendix with a wig.
And it's like they're watching the movie, the Eddie Cantor story.
They're watching the movie that we just had to sit through.
And then she goes, how are you, Eddie? And he goes, I've never felt better in my life.
Now, when I saw that, you reminded me of that one.
It was suicidal.
But also, what the hell's going on? Is he in the movie? Is that another guy? It's like when Eddie, if I may, you remember the Eddie Duchin story? With Tyrone Power?
Yeah, sure.
Kim Novak with those great cans.
Yes.
So I was a kid when that came out, and I'm watching that. I loved it. I had the music by, Carmen Cavallero played the music, right? So I'm watching that movie, and at the end of it, we know he's going to die, Eddie Duchin.
Yeah.
You reading your mail, Frank?
No. just
that gas bill, man.
Looking for something to ask you, buddy.
That gas bill, $89.95.
If this story is
waiting for this story
like
to peter out,
the Donald O'Connor story, I'm going to start reading my mail.
It's not.
I'm going to read my phone bill.
I'm going to read my SAG card. So I'm so all the movie he's dying for the whole movie, Eddie Duchin, and then he ignores his son for the whole movie. By the end of it, he's in his grand Central Park apartment, and he has two pianos there, and he's playing piano with his son. But his son knows that Eddie Duchin's going to die any minute. So he's playing piano with his son, and all of a sudden, Tyrone Power's Eddie Duchin he gets like, obviously he's getting sick, and his son, they cut to his son who's looking at him, and Eddie is missing notes on the keyboard, and they cut to his son again. And when they cut back, the doors have swung open, there's wind coming in, and he's disappeared. And I thought to myself, what kind of Ghana disease is this where your suit disappears? All right, sorry.
Now, Also, in the Eddie Cantor story,
Yes.
some guy runs in to Eddie's apartment with the most phony-looking nose.
Oh, I was going to say newspaper.
Yeah, a
Lusitania song.
phony-looking big nose.
Durante?
Yeah, and he's going, "Hey, Eddie, ha-cha-cha."
Like you said, ha-cha-cha all
Yeah,
the
in
time.
real life,
Yeah.
all the time. But the best part of the Al Jolson Sings Again is when Larry Parks as Larry Parks
Yes,
meets
there you go.
Larry Parks as Al
It's
Jolson.
Pirandello.
That is
Yeah,
surreal.
and it's
Wow.
in the worst split screen effects ever.
Wow.
Off subject, fortunately. I was thinking the other day, I woke up and you know how things come to you in there just as soon as you wake up. I thought,
Yes.
you know how Woody Allen used to have that bit, what he would think of to keep from coming, the baseball?
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Keep from premature ejaculation.
Yeah.
I thought, what if, you could also like imagine, if you really had a problem with it, you had to go more than that. You could imagine Abbott and Costello fucking.
Lou, or our pal Drew Friedman.
Give it to me, Lou. Give it to me, Lou. Split me in half, Lou. Split me in half, Lou. Blow the gorilla, Lou. Split me in half, Lou.
Ha ha ha! Chick.
Now look what you did, Lou. You broke the condom.
Hey, look.
Okay.
I've said this in a few of the podcasts already, and I don't care. My favorite death scene.
Yes. Can it get hotter in here? I feel
No.
like Alec Guinness in the he's in that box.
The Richard
My-
River
yeah,
Choir.
they're
We'll
little
wrap
box-
it up in a minute.
Little box they put him in.
My
Let
favorite
Gilbert do his
death
button
loose.
scene
Yeah.
of all time
Yes.
is in the Button Loose story.
Oh, yes,
Remember
I know. You
with-
told me that. I love that.
with
Tell it
Hack-
again.
Hack-
Yeah,
Hackett.
okay.
No, tell
Okay.
again.
So,
But
Buddy
also,
Hackett.
your beef always was that
Yes.
Buddy Hackett was so slow as well.
Yeah.
Awful.
Oh,
Bad
it was-
timing.
Yeah.
What's the guy's name on?
Do you think they said? Do you think they said that we're short? Just
Yes, stretch.
Yeah, stretch. Yeah.
So he's lying in the hospital bed after a heart attack, and Artie Johnson from Laugh-In is his agent.
Eddie Sherman.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he goes.
Very interesting.
And he goes, and Artie reaches under his jacket and takes out a strawberry malted. And he goes, "This is 'cause you were a good boy." And 'cause all the time he's going, "I'm a bad boy."
Give me your cock, Lou.
Yes.
I'm
So
a bad boy.
he
Okay.
takes a sip. He's in the hospital bed, very weak. Buddy Hackett, as Lou Costello, takes a sip of this, and he goes, "You know, Eddie, I had a lot of strawberry maltage in my day, but this one's the best." And he closes his eyes and dies.
It's brilliant. It's just like Camille.
You think that
That's
Eddie
the
put
best.
something in there? Just to get out of the movie? Just so the movie would end? Yeah.
We have to wrap it up, but
Oh, I got more.
but
I got more
forgot-
stories.
Okay, no, I have, and then, but
I got
then.
more. I got even worse
more
stories.
Eddie Duchin.
Then, when you think he's dead,
Yeah.
he opens his eyes again and goes, "Did I ever tell you when I met Donald O'Connor?
Oh, get out of here! How dare
He
you?
gave me his
It's another callback.
jacket."
He promised to be some little kid in the show.
Now, you've written some classic television
Thank you,
episodes,
sir.
which I know our listeners are Seinfeld fans. You wrote the Babu episode of
I
Seinfeld.
created Baba Bot, the cafe, and the suicide, Drake's Cakes one,
and the Drake's Cakes
JF
one.
Kennedy, Kennedy assassination. I was one of the writers on that, and contributed.
And the Cheever letters with
Cheever letters, yeah.
with Kramer.
Yeah. My mother. I also wrote other series. My Mother the Chimp,
Now, when you were on,
A Bridge for Jimmy.
Yep.
Remember
I
that?
heard when you were a writer on Seinfeld, that Seinfeld one time said to you, "You know, I have a jacket.
No! How dare you?
I'm kind of fat now."
Yeah, but
and
one thing Jerry did like though,
can
I would do a bit for Jerry and Larry where I sort of perfected it. It was an actor coming in to read for a role, and he's reading the role, and he accidentally farts during the reading. And it's all the network executives and the women and the secretaries are there, and he's so embarrassed reading it that he has a stroke, and the left side of his face and body are paralyzed, and he has to drag himself with just the drool out of it, and going at the end, will you be calling my agent? I'm a very... Just because he farted, he's so embarrassed. He had a grand mal seizure. Good night, everybody.
I want to plug your book before we go, which you can still find on Amazon. Milton Marty, the longest lasting and least successful comedy writing duo in showbiz history, with cover art by the great
Cover art by our old pal,
Drew Friedman. And it's a hilarious book.
Thank you,
can
Frankie.
Still get it on Amazon. And
Gilbert, where are you appearing?
Nowhere. Okay. After this, it's over. I'll be doing my one-man show called My Meeting with Donald
Listen,
O'Connor.
any of these stories you want to use, anyone, they're yours,
If
my friend.
I may right now, one time I was working with Donald O'Connor.
You should just fade out.
corrigible, isn't he?
Well, I wouldn't encourage him.
You want to take us out on the George Jessel story?
Oh, yes.
Real quick?
I'm working on a special with Rob Reiner, Chris
Yes.
Guest, and Harry Shearer. Actually,
Just to interject, the TV show.
The TV show.
And was that the first appearance of Spinal Tap?
yeah, very first appearance of Spinal
Paul
Tap.
Schaefer tells me Harry Shearer hates me.
Anyway,
yeah.
we.
He's
No,
saying,
how am I supposed to say to that?
You know,
I have no.
Harry hates you.
Harry
He
hates
really
everyone.
hates. Oh,
If
okay.
Harry doesn't hate you, you got a problem.
Yeah.
He was nice to me.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I rest my case.
I don't know what it is, Gil.
Yeah, rest my case. So we hear that someone runs and goes, "Hey guys, you guys will like this. George Jessel is doing an afternoon show at 4 p.m. Like, great time, great time to appear at in the theater at the Queen Mary, which is now in dry dock in Long Beach, but it was already like 3, and he's going on at 4:30, and we're in the valley, Right. So we go, well, don't we have to write the rest of the show? Fuck that. George Jessel's appearing in the Queen.
Yeah.
So we drive so fast.
Who is it? You, Reiner, and
Reiner, Harry, Chris Guest. That was it.
Okay.
Maybe somebody else. I don't remember. So we get there. We run up the gangplank.
You got
Like the end of On the Town, the free sailors
yes.
go, on the town, we're going to have some comedy, And we get in there. We go to the grand ballroom of the Queen Mary now, and there's 3 old women, with oxygen in their noses and the tanks and everything. And we go right down. We're in time. Thank God we're in time. We drove like maniacs. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. George E. Jessel, the Toastmaster General. He's wheeled out in a wheelchair, and he's wearing the Eisenhower jacket with the medals. And the tube with his price tag still on it. That one.
Oh, God.
Turn to the right. The tube is facing.
Oh, jeez.
Tube is facing to the side. And every time he turns his head, the tube stays in the same place, but he turns his head. And hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. And he started doing these bits, and we just couldn't believe it. He did Hello, Mama. You remember Hello,
yes.
Well,
Hello,
explain
Mama.
that.
This is your son.
So George Jessel's 97, and he's doing a phone call to his mama. Hello, Mama. And Mama's trying to make him go out with a daughter of one of her friends. And he's going, with teeth, trying to keep the teeth in. Just keeping the teeth in was already a major. There's a thing called glue for the head. He put the glue from the hair on his teeth and then whatever. And he goes, hello, Mama. What, Mama? Mama, I don't want to meet it. What, Mama? I don't want to meet a young girl, Mama. What, Mama? And then, 97 years old. And the medals. And the Eisenhower jacket,
Sure.
So, what, Mama? I'm not going to come over to Mrs. Reibowitz's house and meet Yetta. What? No, Mama. And so finally he does all that stuff, and and he's always got the eye dripping, he's got the drip. It's the eye. The eye is dripping some kind of viscous fluid.
Goo.
Just God knows what.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know what, like fluid from Eddie Cantor fluid is coming out of his eyes. And at the end of the show, and we're like pulverized, just trying not to laugh, and just can't believe our good fortune. And finally goes, well, you know what time it is now, ladies and gentlemen? Now there's only one woman died. The other 2 are being frozen. The other 2 women are being frozen. And he says, take this chair away. Take it away. And We hear this music, and it's your grand old flag. He stands up and goes, "I have a grand old flag." You know, and he's standing up there like teetering.
God, Lord.
A flying flag. And it was, you know, that's no way either.
Did he do?
He gave me his Eisenhower jacket.
Oh,
really?
Yes.
See?
No,
I brought it all the way around.
It would have been better if you said, and then he said, you know, I have a jacket here from Donald O'Connor.
I wore it at the USO show with Kay May Questel.
Did Donald O'Connor make Costello was Betty Boop?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Georgie Jessel, did he do it? One bright and
of course.
shining light.
Of course, right. And we all went like, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you got to go. Yeah, all right. We used to do a thing. We'd go to see like our gang of guys. You know, you're part of it, too, where we go. We went to see this guy, Nick Edenetti, who did a show called The Playography.
Oh, the Bad Entertainment Nights.
Yeah, bad Entertainment Nights. There's this guy, Nick Edenetti, who did an evening of the Frank Sinatra's life called The Playography. This was in a Chinese restaurant in the Valley. Harry Shearer said, I'm going to pick you up in 5 minutes. We're going to go see this guy, Nick Edenetti, do Sinatra, The Playography. Now, the first time we saw it, of course, we saw it many times after that, there was other people in it. There was a guy playing, a woman who would play all the parts like, what was her name? The no-chin woman who, the columnist.
Katie
Katie
Kilgallen.
Kilgallen. Dorothy Kilgallen.
Dorothy Kilgallen. And then finally, there was a whole thing where he wouldn't pay anybody. So the next time we went to see it was just him doing all the lines. Okay, that's it. No ending. And he ended up managing Sly Stone. Sly Stone,
now,
Family
Sly
Stone.
Stone, is
Nicky
he
Edenetti.
living out on the street now? That's what I heard.
I hope, is he alive even?
Yeah, he's alive.
Well, he's got
Sly
the whole
Stone.
family stone. Can't they take him in? He's got a whole family stone to ask to.
I heard sometimes he puts on an artificial nose and goes, ha, cha, 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 cha.
Now, Eddie, inka-dinka-dink. Oh, come on, Jimmy, stop that. You're not on stage now. Inka-dinka-dinky. I took out Jimmy Durante's daughter once.
You did?
Yeah.
Real quick.
She gave me blow. Imagine Jimmy Durante's daughter gave me blow. True story.
I heard when
You think it'd be a lot because Jimmy Durante had a big nose.
Now,
Not that I took the blow.
when you were fucking her,
I didn't. Hey, I never said that.
did she go, ha, cha, 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 cha?
But dinky doo. I don't think.
Everybody tries to get into my cunt.
Stop the music. Stop the semen. Stop the semen. Oh, good
We've
fun.
deteriorated
Good,
again.
clean fun.
Tell us real quick what Gene Balo said to you at the Friars Club when you asked him how he was doing.
Goodbye, Mrs. Calabash. Where
The great Gene Balos.
Lou, put it in, Lou. I'm a bad.
Oh, shit.
Paul Shea, you know Gene Bayless, the comedian.
Sure.
Yes,
Paul
Gilbert's a
Schaefer
fan.
Went in there one day to have lunch at the Friars, and we go, Gene Bayless is there, and Paul says to Gene Bayless, "Hey, Gene, how you doing?" He says, "Not good, Paulie. I just came from the doctors. He put a glass tube in my prick." All right, good to know, Gene. The golden years. You know what I mean? Well, you can't top that.
Well, we've been talking to
Is the engineer still here? Did Frank go home?
We've been talking to Tom Leopold.
Should I retell the story?
Here at Nutmeg Post.
And
guest
thank you.
of Frank V.
Thank you, Frank. Thanks, Nutmeg.
I'm Gilbert Gottfried. This has been Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast with my co-host, Frank Santopadre. And Tom Leopold is going to come back another time and tell us parts he left out of the Donald O'Connor
I left like the real good funny crap out of it. I'll just come back and tell you the really funny crap that I forgot.
Thanks, Tommy.
Thank you, guys.
I love you.
Love you.
Too. Love you back.